given very interesting roles. These are interesting roles because they're strong women. Whilst they are hemmed in by circumstance, they are fairly strong women. Yes?
I just want to add something about Pierrot le Fou. At the time Godard was filming, he was with Anna Karenine. They were together in love. So I think the way he looks at her, I mean, he knew her very well. So there's a lot of Anna, I think, in the character of
Absolutely. Anna Karenine, the actress, and Jean-Luc Godard, the director at the time when the film was made, were together. Okay, they were married at the time. And also, something else that you pay attention to, okay? Before we get into the cinema stuff, and talk about colors and lighting, and camera, and all of that stuff. Also, you should look at, okay, the acting. Now, you see a very clear difference in the acting compared to Bollywood and Dev D, don't you? Do I have to really illustrate that one? No. Okay. It's much more natural. It's much more what life looks like. Okay. Now, this is something that Indian independent cinema is what makes it most interesting. Okay. I've given this a lot of thought. I'm going out on a limb here. I'm sharing my own personal thoughts about this. Bollywood, as a cinematic paradigm, is about looking at the world the way we wish it to be. I'll repeat that for you. Bollywood is about looking at the world the way we wish it to be. So we have people doing things the way we wish them to be, wholesome or otherwise, but we wish it that way. So it's escapist cinema. You follow me so far? Okay. What's emerging right now and what actually makes Indian independent cinema different is not the stories, is not the actors, the directors, the writers, the producers. They're all the same. It's not the DPs, the cinematographers. It's none of the crew people. They're all the same. But what the filmmakers are trying to do in independent Indian cinema is represent life the way it is. And that is a very big difference. That is why natural acting fits in better. I don't know if any of you have seen the film Who Killed Jessica? Yeah. Right, okay. No one killed Jessica, right? I always get the title wrong, man. That and George Lucas. It's just not my day. But I remember watching the movie, and I got as far as Rani Mukherjee. And the minute, and I like her, she's fine. The minute she was in the movie, I was like, pause, I can't watch it. Because she was doing this Bollywood acting next to these very natural actors. And it just was so out of sync. Yes?
Recently, the Lunchbox, you watched that?
The Lunchbox? I haven't seen it yet, so. But go ahead.
That would be a good example of natural.
Yeah, and that's what's emerging here. Okay? Now, what did you notice about the acting in Pierrot le Fou? Was it natural?
No.
stylized.
Incredibly stylized. What do you mean?
Well, it's not natural for one, and it's very intense.
There's a
It has an
formality to
intention.
it.
Just one second, sorry.
You're trying to be theatrical.
There's a little bit of theatricalness into it, absolutely. And what did you say? I'm sorry?
I said there was a bit of formality to it.
A bit of formality, which kind of strikes fun.
It was very
not real,
pacey.
it's not
It was very
real.
pacey, and they were moving with that. It was quick and pacey.
It was very paced, absolutely. They were moving quickly. But give me another word. It was used earlier. All right, you said it. What's the word? Eccentric. Okay, Godard loved the eccentric. He himself is terribly eccentric. And that's the way he made his characters. Okay, give you an example. Those of you who don't know Godard's work that well. Have you ever seen a Woody Allen film?
Yes.
Have you seen more than one? Have you ever noticed that everybody in a Woody Allen film is trying to be Woody Allen? They all like try to be Woody Allen in the movie, okay? And he doesn't seem to have a problem with it because he just wants everyone to be him. All right. What's that? Guy Ritchie, yes, as well. Okay, so Godard is very similar that way. All of his films, especially in this early kind of sweet spot of his career. Okay, what you need to know about Godard's career is that he makes Abu Yusuf in 1959, 1960. Okay, and on the heels of that, he makes a couple films pretty quickly. He makes Alphaville, which is a futuristic science film that you can't find anywhere. It's really bad, but if you can find it, just watch it anyway for giggles because it's kind of funny. Because they tried to make Paris look like a futuristic place and it doesn't work at all because they had no budget. All right, so like they're just pretending. It's almost ridiculous, but it's worth a look. He also makes A Band Apart. Okay, he also makes Masculine and Feminine. And then he makes these two great films that stand out. These are two color films that he makes because A Band Apart and Masculine and Feminine are both black and white. He makes Pierrot le Fou, and he makes Limit Plea, Contempt. Okay, and those are his two kind of like big, opuses. And then later in the 60s, he starts to veer that he was a communist. Well, he probably still is a communist, I guess. And yes, Pierre Godard is still alive, as far as I know. But he started making all these weird communist movies that if you can watch them, God bless you. All right, because nobody can watch them. But
Weekend
what's that?
Weekend.
He made Weekend as well. Weekend was later, after he started coming out of his communist experience. He started making Weekend and everything. What's that?
He goes sober down after the
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's sober now, whatever. But that was a special guy. So okay, but now let's talk about the cinema. Let's talk about the cinema. Now this is really hard for a group of people in 2014, and I'll explain why. Because you've seen all of this before. Shooting on the street is not uncommon to you. Location sound is not uncommon. You're familiar with this style of filmmaking. But you need to understand that in 1961, they were still shooting everything in studios. Everything was still controlled. They never went on location unless they really had to. Okay? They never shot outside. They never, what was one of the most shocking things you saw? That's still kind of weird to look at. Yeah, the red thing.
Yeah.
I mean, who lights the whole thing red? Okay? And that was another signature of Godard's. Godard always used color. He, for those of you that take art therapy here at the art law, you'll understand that. He understood the power of color, and he used it. He understood what color could incite, what it could infer, what it could elicit, and also what it meant. And if you want to see a very good example of that, you should definitely take a look at this film called Contempt, because he even dresses the characters up in different colors. Okay, so take a look at that film. P.S. Just so you know, it's my favorite John Godard film ever. Arguably my favorite film of all time.
Which one? Which one?
And it's very hard for a filmmaker to say that, but I gotta be honest. That might be it. If I'm on a desert island, Contempt is coming along. Okay. Now, also, look at the way that Kasha shoots Dev D. And now I just want to put it in context for you to show you how different it is. Think of Dev Das.
Yeah, this one's burnt out.
He's burnt it out. Also, he's shooting up there, it's in Punjab, correct?
Yeah.
That hood. All right? Think about what he does. You know how, like, here in India, every time you watch a film that takes place in Punjab, it's a Bollywood film, the opening shot is this sweeping shot of a field. And the corn is glowing. How is the corn always glowing? It's all perfectly gold. All right? It's really impressive.
That's how it looks in sunlight.
I guess. I don't know. I've never been, so I wouldn't be able to attest to it. But, so what he does is, he burns it out. He pulls up, he does what we call, he overexposes it. He opens it up a little bit, okay? He opens the aperture of the camera up a little bit, so it looks burnt out. Okay, so right there, he takes the Bollywood paradigm on how to shoot this part of the world and flips it right on its head. Now also, he takes the most cliched Bollywood cinematic code and shows what it really looks like and not what we'd like it to look like, which is the wedding. The whole wedding sequence. All right? When we Westerners, if we're uninitiated to Bollywood, we watch these Bollywood movies about weddings, and we get invited to a wedding, we show up ready to have a great time. And not that Indian weddings are a bad time. I don't mean to infer that. All right? I had an Indian wedding. It was a really good time. The point I'm trying to make is that the reality of it looks much different than the cinema. And what he tries to do is bring us close into that world. Okay? And then also, he does something that is a taboo. He doesn't talk about sex. He just puts it right there, front and center. Okay? He does not make a judgment of it. He's not trying to make a political statement. He's not trying to reinvent the wheel. He just says, young people have sex. Like it or not. It is what it is. Okay? Same thing goes with drugs. Young people smoke joints. Young people get high. They drink. Okay? I don't speak Hindi, From what I understand, there are some really, really disgusting, gross words in the language of Hindi. And you got people talking in that vernacular because that's how people talk. And what is fresh, apart from the fact that he changes the paradigm of the way the film looks, he brings you into a world that you yourself feel like you either have inhabited, could inhabit, etc., etc. Okay? So, in the case of Kashyap, he takes all of the classic Bollywood codes, which he knows well, because if you ever look at his credits, have you ever done that? Take a look at the number of Bollywood films he's written. You'll be shocked to know that he wrote it. Like, he wrote that. He wrote that. Jesus, that's terrible. You wrote that? Okay. You know, but he wrote, so he knows the codes so well, like our friend Goddard knew the codes so well, that he knew how to break the rules. And he understood the value of breaking the rules. He understood what it would do to the audience. He understood why you have to break the rules. Okay? And then the last thing is 3-act structure. Now this is something that Goddard uses in Pyar de Fou, 3-act structure. Does anyone know what 3-act structure is? Beginning, middle, and end. Sounds rather straightforward and simple, doesn't it? Okay. Cinema owes a lot to 3-act structure. It's almost like cinema was invented to fit into the model of 3-act structure. Bollywood, okay, if you understand it as a genre and not as an industry of cinema, Bollywood is the only industry, or rather genre of cinema, that is actually 5-act structure. Anyone know what 5-act structure is? Come on, guys, you all took English literature. What's that? With songs in it? Yes, it does have songs in it. Okay, well, what is 5-act structure? Anyone remember off the top of their head?
Taking into consideration the intermission in the middle, so you play the time after the intermission.
Right, that's true. But come on, guys, remember that little Freud's triangle? Right? Okay, exposition, rising action, climax, descending action. Okay, denouement. I knew I had 6 in French in there today. Okay, so 5-act structure fits perfectly well into Bollywood. Because Bollywood, first of all, is a 3-hour-long, 2.5-hour-long extravaganza. It needs an intermission, so the climax happens, and then we can come back to a film that's different. Okay, so 5-act structure. Dev D is a 3-act structure film. Beginning, middle, and end. That is also what separates it from Bollywood, is that the first act is exposition. And the way we deal with exposition in a 3-act structure film is this. The first act of the film must include the main conflict, the stakes of the conflict, meaning what's at risk for the conflict, and, okay, the information of the story. Once the act ends, and what you saw there was the ending of the first act of Dev D, the main character begins to react to the main conflict, and he must fight it. That's when Dev, I'm going to ruin the film for some of you, goes to Delhi. Okay. The middle part of the film is about the character trying to fight the main conflict. Halfway through the second act, they will ultimately fail. Okay? They're supposed to fail. That's classic screenwriting. Once they fail, then they have their I'm going to save my life moment, and they build towards the climax. They either win or lose. Whether or not they win or lose against the main conflict is irrelevant. They either win or lose, that is the choice of the writer and director, and then you get to the third act, which is you tie up all loose ends, you roll the credits, the movie's over. That does not fit into the Bollywood model. The Bollywood model requires a twist in the falling action. Okay? They require that. All right? That's why after the intermission, the movie changes. Okay? Another thing that separates Dev D from the classic Bollywood model is that it is not genre non-specific. What do you mean by that? Okay. Have you ever noticed that Bollywood films sometimes feel like 17 genres in one movie? A little bit comedy, a little bit action, a little bit drama, it's a little bit too much of everything.
Lost
right?
and found formula. Lost and found formula.
Masala,
Brothers,
masala.
Dacoits, Sarpanch in the village, and your rich dad. All that.
I just saw Bag Milka Bag, right? This movie is 17 movies. Apart from the fact that it's a commercial for Farhan Akhtar's body. I could have got